communities and societies in Malawi are continually facing challenges due to the impacts of climate change on agriculture. Rural communities in Malawi depend on agriculture for their survival. In Malawi, the impacts of climate change are manifesting in various ways, such as intense rainfall, changing rainfall patterns, floods, droughts, and prolonged dry spells. Small-scale farmers who produce more than half of the world's food supply and 70% of the countries are already being impacted by climate change. AfriCup is a €9.2 million research program focused on improving evidence-based policymaking to develop sustainable, productive agricultural systems resilient to climate change with research activities in South Africa, Tanzania, Zambia, Malawi, and the United Kingdom. AfriCup is led by the University of Leeds, a leading Russell Group university in the north of England, in partnership with the Food, Agriculture and Natural Resources Policy Analysis Network, a Pan-African multi-stakeholder policy network whose regional secretariat is in Pretoria, South Africa. AfriCup is focused on generating evidence-based policy to transform agriculture and food systems in Africa. The program aims to improve productivity of farming systems and their resilience to shocks emanating from climate change impacts. This is critical given agriculture's key role in Africa's economy, contributing about 15% of continental GDP, with smallholder farms constituting approximately 80% of all farms in SSA, employing about 175 million people directly and having significant impact on the environment. In Malawi, like in the other participating countries, AfriCup is designed to advise on the development of climate-smart agri-food system pathways and create special agricultural zones where research can be turned into evidence. This will lead to the development of policies that are capable of influencing practices. AfriCup works with key stakeholders to develop climate-smart scenarios and ideal development pathways to guide national policy and its implementation. Through the Department of Agricultural Research Services, this project supports ongoing field trials at Chitedze Agricultural Research Station. The project will conduct interdisciplinary research on farming systems from soils, plant and livestock sciences, to ecology, political and social sciences. Cisanet National Director Pamela Kuali says the program aims at identifying and implementing evidence-based policy pathways. She explains the objectives of the project role as well as its expectations.
The project is primarily looking at climate change, climate-smart agricultural systems. It aims to identify and implement evidence-based policy pathways to strengthen the food systems to meet the food security and economic development needs in the wake of climate change. As you know, climate change, climate-smart agriculture is a cross-cutting issue. We are not only looking at the Ministry of Agriculture or Ministry of Natural Environment, but we are looking at all these ministries that directly support agriculture, bring the evidence to them, ensure that it reaches the communities and it is translated into action, or they are using it as they are developing the policies, but also as they are implementing the policies. So essentially the project is trying to link evidence generated from the policy studies to policy to the actions on the ground.
The comparative assessment that was conducted in 2017 revealed that the impacts of climate change are already being perceived both by former experts and by rural populations across Eastern and Southern Africa, including Malawi. The agricultural sector in Malawi is constrained by recurrent drought and high year-to-year rainfall variability, which contributes to the country being ranked as one of the world's 12 countries most vulnerable to the adverse effects of climate change. Ive Ligowe, research scientist of the Department of Agriculture Research Services, is excited with the project, which will address research gaps with limited funding. But how is Malawi as a country affected with climate change, and what is the government doing to overcome this?
Climate change has really affected food security in Malawi, mainly if we look at two things. The first issue is based on the climate itself. In these days, we are experiencing a lot of drought in Malawi. So by drought, we mean that the rains that we are receiving, they are so insufficient. At the same time, they are poorly distributed. This has affected the yields. Mainly, if we are saying food security in Malawi, we are referring to maize. We are looking at adaptation measures to climate change. And one of the adaptation measures to climate change is we are encouraging our farmers to adapt to some of these technologies which are coming in, like conservation agriculture. We are promoting conservation agriculture, which has proved to work under water stress conditions.
On the other hand, Professor Ande Dogel, Dean of the Faculty of Environment or Professor of Environmental Sustainability at the University of Leeds, who is also Malawi Africa Country Coordinator for Africa Project, believes that local researcher institutions have capacity to produce evidence-based solutions or innovations needed to address climate change.
There is some really important information held locally, both within the farmers' organisations and the farmer groups, but also through research organisations like Luana, like the Department for Agricultural Research Services, all of whom we're working with on the Africa programme. However, that information has been based on what the climate and the weather is like now. As we look forward, all institutions globally who are interested in maize production, in terms of the types of crop we have, need to work together. So all that information is not held here in Malawi. There is global expertise on what the future climate will be like, such as from the UK Met Office, on what crop breeding programs need to be put in place, such as through the Cisanet, the World Maize Centre, and CIAT and other partner organisations that we look to work with. So there is a lot of information already here in the country, but we need to use the best science available from across the world to help Malawi address its future resilience in its food system.
Changing farming ways does not happen overnight, as explains Beatrice Makwenda, Head of Policy and Communication at the National Smallholder Farmers Association of Malawi, NASFAM.
Over the years, what we've noted, especially with farmers or in general in farming, is that climate change has led to increased pests and diseases. Now you see like issues of fall armyworm that have now come in as a result of climate change, increased drought, dry spells. Nowadays farmers can no longer predict when rainfall would come and how long it may be. So you have pockets where you find either you have too much rain or too little rain or no rain at all. So those have been like the incidences that farmers are observing that is affecting how agricultural farming is being done.
Meanwhile, Programs Officer for Center for Environmental Policy and Advocacy, CEPA, Agatha Conjera, says from civil society's point of view, expectations are high on the project, but she emphasized that it is time to walk the talk on the implementation of policies.
We've been talking about Malawi having different good policies, but we are failing to implement them. As such, we're failing to see the value of these policies, the intended goal of these policies. So as it was explained, we're expecting that at the end of this project, we should see examples of policy implementation on the ground, which will also be used to recommend to policymakers that this is working, we should do it this way. So we are expecting to work with, to collaborate with those that are implementing this policy, this project.
The project is likely to avert food crisis in some African countries, including Malawi. In recent years, Malawi has been experiencing poor rainfall patterns as a result of climate change and outbreak of fall armyworms that have affected crop yields, especially maize, the staple food.